The government pay scale is outdated, and it could completely change in the near future. Will it be for the better or worse? Let's get into it. Government salaries currently range from $21,000 a year to over $150,000 a year. It ranges from GS1 to GS15 with steps from 1 to 10 between each grade, and it's been like that for quite a while. There are some clear problems with the structure of this pay scale, and if you just look at the bottom, there's some big problems with the bottom. It's too low. It's low paying. We're expecting students to come out of the university and accept a GS5, a GS6, and it doesn't make any sense. Especially when these people have IT skills. They have valuable skills where private companies are eager to pay them six figures, $100,000 or more a year, and we're going to offer them GS6 or 7. That's not the way that you're able to compete for talent. That's not the way that you're able to retain talent. The other problem is at the top of the pay scale. Looking at GS15, that maxes out at $183,000 a year. And you might be thinking, well, what's wrong with that, Armand? That looks pretty good. And it might be pretty good in a rural area, but then take that same salary, go to Washington, D.C., go to San Francisco, go to New York City, and then chop 30-35% off for taxes. And if you're in a high cost area, you're left with about $110,000. That's not enough to be able to afford to buy a house in these metropolitan areas. It's not enough in Arlington County or Fairfax County in Northern Virginia. You're not doing anything with $110,000. And then we have to talk about the pay gap. And when I talk about pay gap, I'm not talking about averages, because if you look at the average salary in the federal government, you look at the average salary in the private sector, on the plain averages, the government's going to win out. The government pays more. But if you look at industry specific, you will see gaps. When you look at the medical sector, if you look at the IT sector, if you look at the engineering sector, there are gaps there that grow, that are growing. Now, you don't have to stay on the GS scale as a government employee. You could try for one of the executive positions, the senior executive service, and you could make over $200,000 a year, but that would be heavily taxed as well. And not everybody makes it to that level. There are a lot of GS15s in DC, and they've taken the SES prep courses. They have taken the academy courses. They still do not get selected for SES. So it's not an easy path. It's definitely not a guaranteed path. So here's the deal. The SES, the executive positions, the GS15, and Congress, their pay is all linked together. And then over a decade ago, Congress decided, you know what? We're going to stop giving ourselves pay raises, because it looks pretty bad if you're worth $1 million or more and you keep giving yourself pay raises. The average member of Congress has a net worth of $1 million. And there's plenty of them that have multi-millions, right? So they don't really need the little bit of pay raises. Let's say go to 183 to 200,000. They don't need that small pay raise. But there's a huge difference in the net worth of a member of Congress compared to a GS15. The majority of GS15s are not millionaires. So the solution seems pretty clear to me. You have to de-link or decouple the salaries that are locked together. Congress salary should be separate from GS15. GS15 salary should be separate from SES. Make the salary less political and then tie it to performance. If you want a cap to the salary, look at the president's cap. The president right now, I think, has a cap of $400,000, something like that. Use that as a cap, because if you continue with the way things are and you're capping it out at 183 in San Francisco, in DC, if you're doing that, you are not going to be able to attract and retain the best and the brightest. You simply can't. The engineers, the lawyers, they're going to go to Google, they're going to go to Meta, all these other Microsoft, these high-paying IT corporations that can actually afford them. Okay, so what is the average GS grade in the government right now? It's between GS12 and GS13. Some years is GS12, other years is GS13. But the people that are seriously impacted are the GS14s and GS15s in those large metropolitan areas. So much so that there's people that work in these metropolitan areas, but they live in rural areas. And they just deal with the 3 to 4 hour commute to come in order to command a higher salary. Now, we do have a member of Congress right now putting together a plan in order to address the pay caps. What's the solution moving forward? Not many details have been revealed just yet, but you have to take another thing into consideration. The current pay scale, it came around, it was originated in 1949, which was right after World War II. And at that time, they were thinking, okay, we'll make it step 1 through step 10, and that way, based on the math, it would take someone 18 years to reach the senior level. And that made sense because people would learn their jobs and they would slowly get that experience. Well, we live in a completely different world now where somebody can walk out of high school or they can walk out of university with an incredibly valuable skill set without having to put the 18 or 20 years in. They're immediately highly marketable. And you might be wondering, why am I focused on GS pay scale? There's other pay scales out there. There's WG, there's NH, there's AD. The thing about it, when you're talking about the federal government, 70% of federal employees, they're on the GS pay scale. And the ones that are not, most of them are trying to get on the GS pay scale. Now there's other pay scales that pay more. So maybe they're happy over there, but for the most part, a lot of them are trying to get on the GS pay scale. Another thing to consider is a lot of the other pay scales, most of the time, or a lot of the times, they're connected to the accepted service, which is fine if that aligns with your career goals, but what I recommend most people is to try to get on to the competitive service side so that more job opportunities are available for you to apply to. All right, so if you're watching this and maybe you're a little discouraged, maybe this is all a bit discouraging and you're thinking, I'm not gonna work for the government, or maybe I'm not gonna work for the government any longer. Maybe you wanna look towards a contracting job. If you would like to know what it's like to be a defense contractor, I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.